Welcome to the Dividend Talk podcast, episode 41. Our Intel, a classic turnaround company. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dividend Talk. I'm your co-host, Engineer My Freedom, and today I'm joined with European DGI. This is a podcast where we discuss our passion for dividend growth investing with our own unique European flavour. If you're new to this channel, please hit the like button and subscribe to us, and check out our previous episodes on YouTube and Spotify. See you on the inside. Hey, we're back. It's another weekend. How are you doing, European DGI?
Well, it's weekend, so I feel really great. And again, we have got a really great topic today as well. Talking about Intel, it's one of our companies that we actually really like to talk about. So, there's never a dull moment going on in the world. I mean, stock market was a bit going up and down again, like always. So, nothing that really concerns us as long-term investors. So,
Yeah, lots of crazy stuff going on. The first thing is this Suez Canal. What is going on over there? That is crazy, absolutely crazy. What's going on?
yeah. And you know what I like the most? Evergreen is getting a lot of advertising, because the letters on the ship are so big that even on every picture, on every website, you see Evergreen. So I thought, like, is this like a dividend paying company? So I looked it up, and it's from Evergreen Marine, and I believe it's based in Taiwan. But I think it's a private company. It's not listed. Hence, I cannot buy it because I was really hoping that it would be like a dividend aristocrat or something like that, because it's all free commercial.
Of course, you type Evergreen into Google right now, and it just says giant ship blocking the Suez Canal. So, I mean, it's crazy free advertising from, but it shows how important that little. Well, I say little, it's a long, but how important that canal is. I think someone said 10 billion a day it's worth that it's holding up.
Yeah, there are a few numbers going on. I also heard indeed 400 million per hour. 400 million per hour. But did you see the pictures? I mean, like a little tractor trying to take some sand away from this big tanker. I mean, this becomes such a story that it will be for weeks, I'm afraid. I mean,
Yeah,
wow.
they're talking about two weeks, aren't they? At least that this could go on. I mean,
Oh my God. Imagine being the captain and calling your wife at home saying, like, sorry, I will be a few days later because, check the news.
I accidentally got stuck.
If you want to know where I really check the news, you will find exactly where.
But this has impacts, don't it, on Europe and Asia and even energy.
Yeah.
Has big impacts on it. So I mean, I know there's a little war going on with China, Europe, and the US at the minute, and this is just going to add fuel to that as well. It's so like, how does a boat that size get stuck?
Well, I think it's quite common knowledge that you don't turn a tanker ship that easily. But, I think I already heard complot theories that this has been a setup and everything to take the economy. So let's park that aside. I did hear from some companies in the news already that they are expecting some supply issues, and this is also really interesting. So now you also get to see which companies are really depending on Chinese imports, right?
Yeah.
Because that's always a little bit like with some companies, they are not so transparent about it. Yeah, because they want to, I don't know, promote local, or there's like an anti-Chinese import thinking sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Because you would compete the local grocery store away. So this all becomes really obvious now in the upcoming weeks, as long as this takes. So I find it a really interesting story, and how a ship can hit the news and disrupt a part of the economy is just shows how fragile it is. And I mean, who knows, if you would have been a terrorist and you wanted to disrupt the economy, who would have thought about just,
Buy a boat.
buy a boat? Yeah. And
It's
without killing people,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. It's a safer option. I mean, you only need one captain to be a clown and
Yeah.
try and turn a big tanker around. But
Would this size of a ship also be able to block the Panama Canal?
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting to look up. Let's do that after the show.
But it's interesting you mentioned China there and the impacts on that, because it leads into the next topic that I saw, and that's some of our European retail stocks are in trouble because of issues with China. So Adidas, Inditex, I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but Phil, do you know Phil? He wrote an actual blog post on them, and it's on my blog if you want to check it out. H&M and Nike, their share price is falling because apparently H&M came out and criticized some of the working condition in China. Beijing have come out and said, "Oh, we don't want people giving us a bad name," and they've apparently they went and researched all other companies that have criticized them for this reason, have found these 4 companies, and now are starting to have sanctions on them. But it really affects these companies because they're trying to grow and expand in China. So Adidas and Nike, for example, are trying to grow in China, and now the Chinese are kind of going, well, we are not welcome here, or trying to kick them out, or if they're not going to be, if the Chinese snub them a little bit, that's a huge market share drop for them. It could be a disaster.
Yeah. So I prefer my exposure to China to be limited because I don't trust I said their approach to capitalism. So I have a small position in Alibaba, full disclosure, as a value play, because among all these tech stocks, I really find it undervalued. But that's, again, it's probably rightly valued, so because of the Chinese influence. But if I think about all the other companies, if the only catalyst that I see is growth in the Chinese market, it will not be a catalyst for me, because the dependency then on future growth is too risky for me. If you look at Unilever, they're growing in the whole of Asia, right? Not just China or something like that. So it's an important topic for me from that point of view.
Yeah, but you can see why companies target China, because so many people live there. If you can crack that, it's huge potential. But like you said, there's political downfalls to that that you have to be aware of.
I think you need to discount that in your how you say it, in the share price you're willing to pay for a company. If they really have a large exposure to China, I think you need to discount for that and take some money off of your fair value price just for that reason. So I've got also some news, actually, a total different story, but let's go to Germany. Because these kinds of stories, they usually don't really hit the news on Twitter or Facebook or social media. But what I found really interesting is that Siemens Healthineers, and we had a show on Siemens a while ago where we analyzed the stock, and Siemens Healthineers is a subsidiary of Siemens, and they are 79% owned, I said, by their parent company Siemens. And the issue of why they were never in the DAX index, because there's too little float, so too few shares outstanding to be traded in. Okay. And Siemens Healthineers just did an acquisition of Varian Medical Systems, which is a company to support the cancer treatment. And what they did is they got like a loan from the parent company, 15 billion or something like that, to a bridge loan. But they also now use this opportunity to fund a part of this acquisition to do a share issue of 2.8 billion. And with the share issue, there should be 53 million shares now circulating, which might make them, how is it, legible to enter the main German index, the DAX index. And then it becomes interesting, because then there happens more trading in this company. We get more visibility on it. more in the news. And I think this is a good thing typically if you get to the main index. So yeah, for me, this is one of those little things that you see like in the side notes of deep in the news. And I felt like, oh, interesting, because this could be good for Siemens again.
Yeah.
Nice
You
story.
you hold Siemens, so you have some
Shares in
Healthineers.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, it's
Well, I don't have
good
Siemens
news.
Healthineers. I've got Siemens, and with Siemens you own Siemens Healthineers because they have a 79% stake in it. I actually don't know what it means after the share issue. If the also the stake of Siemens and Siemens Healthineers will decrease. I'm not aware of that. I did see that. I think one of the biggest purchases of those shares was a Qatar fund, because and this is what I don't like, right? They issue those shares only to institutional investors. This is the same what we see with IPOs. Why, as
Yeah,
retail investors, we don't get direct access to purchase some shares, right? And that's why I actually like spec deals, because at least as a I said, a retail investor, you can buy already the spec shares. The only thing is there, you have no clue what you're going to get back for it, right?
mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. Okay, so I think that leads nicely then into our main topic. I know we spoke about Intel a couple of episodes. I think it was episode 31, when Bob Swan was in charge, and they had a bit of a disaster. And our title was a play on his words, but we have a little bit of a different sentiment now, I believe. Intel is back, baby, in the words of the new CEO. But I just wanted to get your thoughts, first of all, on their recent webcast.
So I'm actually, I don't own Intel for the reason that I find it a struggling company that lost their competition so far to AMD, TSMC, and have been in denial so far. To hear the CEO speaking this week on Intel Unleashed really gave me a lot of excitement, because what for me, when you look at the turnaround here, you need to have an CEO that attacks the problem at the heart of where the problem resides, is no nonsense, not bullshitting anyone, because we're not blind, and comes with a strategic business plan to fix the company. And all of this I have heard in the conference. And what was even more convincing to me is that someone like Satya Nadella was willing to spend his time to step out from his daily job and to say a few nice words towards Intel. Yeah, and because one of the things that they did, we will get soon to that, is that they are launching their Intel Foundry Services business unit with their own profit and loss. Effectively, they are going to produce chips for others, like based on their needs, particularly. And this is something that Microsoft, Amazon have committed to already, spoken their support out for that. So for someone then like Satya Nadella to come on, I think that gives such a powerful message. And also through the whole conference, let's say, I heard all the time local supply, security reasons. There's
Yeah,
this real political thing going on in Europe and America, where we want to have more a domestic supply chain for these kinds of
yeah.
hyper technology. So for me, the CEO is on top of it. I was amazed by his enthusiasm. I was amazed by his plans, and he really got me excited. I think the shares are not worth their price. Don't get me wrong, but if it would be but now back on 45, where it was, what is it, a year ago,
Yeah.
I would strongly consider it, seeing these plans, because then it's worth waiting.
We've spoke about the importance of a CEO, haven't we, before? And we had a little chat off air and listening to the webcast. And when Pat spoke, it was so engaging. I mean, you were involved. You were listening to every word. And then he turned over to Arvid Kishner of IBM, and it was like it was like a switch. And I've said this to you. It was like a
Yeah,
switch. It was like subconsciously I switched off. I have no clue what Albert said, and he was just talking, talking, talking. It was going over my head, and then Pat comes back on, all of a sudden
yeah,
engaged. And I think, and you said it. You said it. If a CEO can't give me enthusiasm? How is he going to give his staff or his employees enthusiasm? And certainly from Pat, you get that sense of action. I'm here
Yeah.
to do a job. I'm here to turn this around. Now, he's only been in that job 1 month. Do you really believe that these were all his ideas, or were they already there? But I don't think Bob Swan would have got away with coming out with this.
So, so I've got a few thoughts on that. First of all, then Bob Swan should have shared those ideas. Yeah, I think it might have been the lack of ideas here. It might be that the people around him had all these ideas, but often you have groupthink. Yeah, if you think really about how management teams are working, there's all these psychological aspects there. From the other side, maybe he was already targeted. I mean, I'm speculating here. Maybe he was already ringed up a few times before. Let's say, are you interested in this job? We might sack the other guy. But from the other side, I think this guy is an industry veteran. Yeah, he knows his stuff. He knows what's needed. He knows how the market looks like. I mean, you probably also know from your business, if there are 3-4 things that you would do different, you can put them quickly on A4 page, and
Yeah,
then in 1 month you take the best, brightest minds around you in this energy that is being unleashed, and you get to a plan like this, right? So for me, this just looks promising, and now it comes down to, for me, and we still need to go, I think, a little bit through what he's actually promising, but it
yeah,
comes down to is now his leadership skills. Is he able to select the right people that can execute for him? Because being a person that has good ideas doesn't mean that they are also a good executor.
yeah.
Yeah, and this is really where it comes down to now. Can he really find the right executives around him that can really execute on these plans?
Yes, we might dig then a little deeper into what he's actually planning to do. And I suppose the first one is this 20 billion investment into new fabs in Arizona. I mean, I find this. I think it's really good timing. To be fair, I know I've mentioned before this Chips for America Act. I mean, and you touched on it. America and Europe, to a certain extent, are worried about the supply chains. They are completely worried, and they are right, because you've got TMC, who are Taiwan based, Samsung are Europe based, so it's not too much of an issue for Europe. But for Americans, they don't really have anyone at the moment. So they need to shore that up, because there is a shortage, and it doesn't look like it's going to be, I mean, strengthened anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you've got, I mean, there are so many industry tailwinds, right? Like all the chips required in these cars and everything. And I mean, I'm not even the industry expert, right? But it's just so obvious, right? Everything's being chipped nowadays.
Yeah,
So I think, and what is also is a security issue. Just think about 5G and all the with Trump and not willing to have, was this Huawei, I think it was, to produce
Huawei.
5G. Yeah, exactly. All this stuff, all this stuff in the States. So I think there is this security thing, and I don't know. I mean, we're not in all these secret agencies. We don't know what's going on, right? So it's not like I trust my governments also too much from that point of view. But let's assume that that's all true. That's another big tailwind for a company like Intel, and Intel in that case has a good. It's an iconic company, so they still have some goodwill, right? So I find it also smart that they are going to build these factories and also use it for their foundry services. Because look, this comes down to the quote: if you can't beat them, join them. And that's what they are doing now. And they can become the preferred suppliers for Microsoft and I said, and Amazon.
Yep.
The issue is that they have the power in the supply chain, not Intel. That's a big issue. At the same time, Intel gets to learn a lot again about what their needs are, can use that to create their own IP and bring the next chips in. Yeah, because they're going to co-design all this stuff. So on the short term, it might shift the power more from Intel to the clients in the supply chain. But that
Yeah,
power has already shifted because Intel is not in the game at the moment when it comes to that anyway.
yeah.
So
It makes complete sense that they do this. I got the feeling from before that they weren't going to do it as much. I know they were going to outsource a little bit, but it was a lot more than I expected. But I feel like they are so far behind. They need to do this, and I believe like in their 7 nanometer, they're going to have a dual package with TMC. So and it's the first time in their history that they have to rely on someone from the outside for the GPUs and CPUs, and by 2023 it'll be a dual package with them. So look, there'll be a loss of margins, but like you, I think it's required to get them back on par with these companies that have overtaken them. And there's no doubt that they have overtaken them. They're robbing market
Yeah.
share from them. They have the technology. But if they can start on a level field again and bring them back, I mean, they have the cash flow. They have the cash flow
Yeah.
to really
Yeah.
invest and to propel again.
Yeah, and this is the difference between AT&T and Intel. Intel has so much more cash flow and less debt burden that they are more flexible in their finances to make these kinds of investments.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really hopeful. It's giving just a lot of hope, and I think that's usually the first wave in the turnarounds. And I'm yeah. Also when we look at ICIT, because we're talking, when you were talking about outsourcing, you're talking also about this IDM 2.0, what they're talking about, but their own foundry services to be, let's say, an outsourced provider
Yes.
towards Amazon and Microsoft. So they're really taking it now from both sides, and I find it really smart. And yeah, I just find it really smart because, like I just mentioned, they will get to learn so much from this, and also they get to embed more into their ecosystems there, and also into the also further, I think, in the data centers and the
Yeah.
AI related to it. If you think, if you so, and this is so nice about such a vision, right? You can start dreaming a bit here. So do you think, for instance, then if they really go into the data center space where there are a lot of AI investments, whether they also could at a certain moment, I said, get to a capacity of what Nvidia is offering now?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, there's no reason why they can't, in my opinion. There's no reason why they can't. And one interesting question that came up on the webcast, and it was the very first question, was they've tried this foundry service before. They've tried
yeah,
and it failed. Why is it different this time? And I was so impressed with Pat's response to that. And I mean, but look, he's an engineer. We're both engineers of sorts, and there's no bullshit. He just cut straight to the point. It just wasn't a good time or a good business model at the time. Now is the right time. It's different market conditions. It is the right time, and I agree with him.
yeah. So I think, look, the whole story is really, really a good story, and I think it's a start of a turnaround. That's what it can still fail in many ways, because if they're not living up, I mean, they have now such an Adela, and then and this clown from IBM committing to Intel live. But if they screw this up, phew, that could be really bad. But I cannot imagine that this pet will let this being screwed up.
No, I
I
can't see it.
cannot imagine.
I can't see it.
So
But we have to be careful as well, because I know after hours the price was up 7-8% based on. I mean, it's good news. Yeah,
euphoria.
it's
Yeah,
good news, but nothing has actually happened. And Pat has said it himself. He put it into his speech. It's not a throwaway comment, but he said 2021 is a transitional year. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to
yeah,
happen this year. We might start seeing the benefit of it towards the end of next year, Q4 2022. This is
yeah,
the earliest I'd expect to see something. So I think it's, even though it's the start of a turnaround, or hopefully the start of a turnaround, there's still time to sit back and wait
yeah.
and
So
to
the
see
yeah.
this turnaround actually happening.
Yeah, and now I come in as a dividend investor. I don't mind waiting during a turnaround, but then it needs to have a 4% yield or something like that.
Yeah.
A decent yield that you get compensated for it. And we're not getting compensated at these prices enough. So for me, it's therefore not attractive at this price. But again, if something happens and it drops to 50, 45, and not because they have executional issues, but because of a market crash,
Yeah.
that's when I might dip my toes into Intel, because then it's worth the waiting.
I have a slight confession to make. I I
Please go.
s- I sold my shares of Intel. I sold it at $67. And and people might be surprised. And this all actually came around from a discussion we had in the group. And it's an actual Dutch investor, DKK was on, and he was thinking about selling it. And his rationale made sense. I know I was arguing against him, but then the more I thought about it, 67, I think their all-time high is like $70. And that was back in 2000, right before when the last bubble happened. And they were close to that now. And I don't see them growing past that in the next year or two. I really don't. I think that's their ceiling. I could be wrong. I'm only starting to learn technical analysis, but I could be wrong on that. So I sold them. I took a really nice profit from them. I bought them at 45 is my average. So I took a nice profit from them, but I am selling puts on them now. So I do want to buy them back. So I have puts set at a lower price and just buying that premium and then averaging down my price even more.
Wondering if this will be one of your lessons learned in a future blog post a year from now, that you should have never sold them.
It could be. It could be. And I actually said it to my wife when I was there. Will I tell him? Will I tell him I sold him? I said I have to. I have to be honest. But
Yeah.
I mean, it does venture on the side of trying to time the market, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
very close, but I think I have rationale behind it that I'm confident that it doesn't. But if it does, it does.
Yeah. So I would never sell a high quality company like Microsoft, which is a winner. Yeah. Although you could argue it's highly valued, but this is not a high quality company from that point of view. It's a broken company trying to
Yeah,
turn around.
yeah. I would never sell a tier one, and I would be very, very hesitant to sell tier two. But I
Yeah.
had Intel along with Cisco. They're like tier three companies at best for me. So I'm
Yeah.
more than happy to take that gamble. And look, I can gobble up some premium while I'm waiting for the price to come down anyway.
Yeah. And maybe the last thought about Intel, if they're investing 20 billion and also in the new equipment, and I think the Kleine Capitalist also brought it up in the group, there's really one company benefiting from this, and this is the Dutch ASML. Yeah,
Yeah,
so they can really expect some big orders there. And he was referring to it, right? But in one of his first sentences, he was already talking about EUV and
yeah.
ASML. So I think if you are more also into growth companies, check out ASML. I have no clue about their valuation or something like that. But if we're talking about one of the top-notch companies in the chip industry, then it's ASML, because they're selling all those high-end machines that the companies like Intel and such need to produce their chips. So, yeah,
And I believe the equipment is expensive.
it's really valuable. That's what you mean.
Exactly.
Price is what you pay, value is what you get.
Yeah, a better chest of words. Better chest of words. But certainly, I mean, it's nice to see you a little bit more bullish on Intel. I'm still a bull on them. I like the company, and I love this CEO, and I think that's the main driver now. And just I really hope he delivers.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that he does.
Yeah, my narrative has changed with this on the company, because with the old CEO, it was literally for me like in denial. Well, it was plain obvious. So I felt like, okay, I'm not going to touch such a company. It's an iconic brand, but it sounded more like dead money and only declining money, like the next IBM.
Hmm.
But I think they have found a really talented CEO, and but it is like that. New strategy, it changes the narrative, and the narrative is important when you buy a company, because we learn from all the great investors. If you cannot tell in one sentence why you own a company, you better not have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I start to be able to formulate a sentence now for Intel, just not at this price. Yeah.
A sentence with a condition.
Yeah, with a condition. Yeah, but that applies to everything, right? Everything can be expensive. Yeah.
And what do you think of their new research collaboration with IBM? I know you're a huge fan of IBM.
I think there will nothing come out of it because IBM is a declining business. So, I mean, yeah, expect declining revenue on that account. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to produce floppies, or how do you call them? Floppy disks for the old IBM mainframes now? Is that what the Foundry Services is going to do?
No, I was expecting a rant, but I'm really laughing at the show notes here. What you have wrote down. It's I
What did
wish
I
I could
write
share
down?
it. Nothing sensible came out of Albert Krishner's mouth. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, but that was to your point. So maybe to the listeners, I played his 2 minutes. I played it 4 times back to understand what this. And sorry, I need to call the clown by now. What he was saying 4 times. Nothing sensible came out. It was corporate jargon, blah 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 blah. It totally had no meaning what he was saying. I mean, how I get tired almost already thinking about this company, but yeah, that's it. So don't expect anything from this research collaboration. Really, if there comes something out of it, then I mean, then it's like the same as winning the lottery, or that someone gets cured from cancer by going to the church. I mean, that's kind of on the same level here.
Hey, who knows? Time will tell. Time will tell.
Through that. Okay, I mean, let's go to the listeners' questions. It was a great topic to have because many people think about these with turnarounds, and for me, this is really the first moment that I think like, yeah, Intel can turn around. So
Yeah. And if you listen back, I think it was 10 episodes ago we spoke about them, and we had a little bit of a different tone on
oh,
Intel.
definitely.
I was a little bit more optimistic than you are, but this was before Pat was announced, I think. And it was a different tone, and it's amazing. It's only 2.5 months since, and we have a complete different outlook. So it's always worth keeping an open mind and seeing what's happening with companies.
Definitely.
Okay, we'll jump in then. We'll jump into the listeners' questions. And the first one is from none other than Phil. And he asked us, he said, there seems to be a lot of supply chain issues happening right now. He named some companies. Is this something you take into account for this year's strategy, or do you see it as a short term issue only?
I see it as a short-term issue, and for instance, I'm not invested in I'm not heavily invested in companies that rely on these events, like what happened in Texas with the electrical grid or the semiconductor industry. So for me, it's really not an issue. Maybe for the oil companies that I have, but no, I mean, these are nothing fundamental. They will quickly. These are rather blips on the radar, and they will disappear in the footnotes of or in the justification. When someone had a bad quarter, they will put all the blame on that. But then we
Exactly.
also know that they are fooling us. So no, I don't take this too serious.
Okay. Cool.
Okay,
Then
so we have next question from Centrino. And he's asking, with a lot of dividend stocks overvalued due to price appreciation, wouldn't it be smart to sell a portion of your shares and with that money buy undervalued stocks so that you get a higher dividend yield in return? So and I have this thought as well often, right? Like, what if I would sell Microsoft now for, let's say, less than 1% yield and buy a company with 4% yield back? Yeah, you really up your dividend income straight away. So that's effectively the question here.
yeah, and I've just sold Intel for that kind of reason. That the price has appreciated to a point where I don't see it going too much further, and it makes sense to pull back. I bought some Unilever with that money, and I have money then for selling puts on it. I mean, it does make sense in a literal sense when you look at it in writing like that. it does make sense to sell companies that has appreciated in value to a point where you don't see it appreciating much longer and buy under value. But the problem comes, one, you're risking time in the market, and two, if it's a top quality company, why would you want to sell them to buy another company? I mean, I'd only think about it, as I said, in my tier 3 or tier 4. I'd never do it with Johnson Johnson or AbbVie or Microsoft, any of those companies. With Intel, it's a little bit different. It's same with Shell. But if it's a top quality company, then I wouldn't consider it. Only with those that are good companies.
Yeah, I've got the exact same philosophy. Generally, I never sell a company for that reason. But if a tier 4 company suddenly quadruples, let's say, and I totally don't understand it, and it is so low yielding, I will probably put it into another undervalued company indeed. But
yeah,
not for my foundational stocks, definitely not.
Yeah, but I can see the merit in such a strategy, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay. Dividend Wave asked us for a feedback on Intel, and we did a show on that, so I don't think we have to answer this question.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one is from Tiago Diaz, and he said the upcoming Unilever annual general meeting is coming, and there's 26 resolutions to be voted on. Have you considered how you're going to vote? Which items will you reject? And he's not liking item 20 that renews the authority to directors to issue shares.
So I had no time before the show to look into it, but so I need to take it as the sentence literally mentions it, that we are giving the directors the right to issue new shares. This is always a really difficult question for two reasons. And this is, so I don't know the justification why they ask for this permission, right, to issue shares. But if it's issuing shares to be able to do acquisitions, large acquisitions, bolt-on acquisitions, which need to happen quick and in secrecy, I would support it, but then I would like to know what the strategic plan is that they're after, before accepting it. If it's like even without a justification, just to issue shares, I would not do it, because I think that's the role of the shareholder, to protect our shares, our principal, and we don't want to give necessary dilution, because that's the whole capitalistic system, right? You have a board of directors, they work for the shareholders, and we don't. It's not like the shareholders work for the board of directors. So I believe the shareholders should decide about what happens to their shares, and that includes dilution as such. However, under given circumstances, if you have a good strategy which is about expanding revenue due to targeted acquisitions, and you agree with that share issuing is a cheap form of financing, I'm for it. And then you put a cap on it. You say, okay, you can only do, I don't know, issue up to 10% of shares or something like that. Yeah. But I would never hand a CEO a blank check unless it's the founder and he's proven over 30 years or something like that. But that's not the case here in Unilever. So I'm with Thiago on this one, that generally I don't like it, such things.
Okay. And we have another question from the NL, which I assume is Netherlands, dividend investor. And he asked us, do you have a strategy or rule to buy solid companies that are always looking overvalued? So Visa or MasterCard, for example.
No, I don't buy them if they are overvalued. I'm a combination of a value investor and dividend investor. You know what it is with some of those companies? They look overvalued because we're in the longest bull market ever, where sometimes like common sense has disappeared. Yeah, to buy Nike at these prices, what is the multiple of 40 or 50 for the sneakers that they are selling? It's insane. It's literally insane. And then with the political risk on it with China and such. So no, the only thing that I could do, and then I'm looking at Visa here, is to do something similar what I've done with Microsoft. or what I sometimes recommend, that okay, buy Microsoft together with a high yielder, so that you still have an average yield of 2 or 3%, right? And so that you mix some growth into your portfolio, which I think is not bad, to have some future growth. But then you need to consider that it will only have a meaningful impact to 15, 20 years down the line. And it depends then on how far you're away from your, let's say, early retirement date. And you need to take all these kinds of things in consideration if you do it. And that also means that you need to take into consideration, can Visa, for instance, still triple or quadruple their market cap based on the size of the market that you see in front of them? And when I think about Visa, I know many people are bullish on it, but then I also see Revolut and such, and then I think like, there are some fintech companies, and how safe is Visa compared to the fintech players coming up? I think Visa is still large enough with the technology and everything. It's really just the number one in the world. But yeah, I feel much more comfortable than to do that, for instance, with Microsoft, to add some Microsoft together with high yield there.
Yeah.
How do you look at that?
I don't have a particular strategy in place. I know you've mentioned before buying a high and low yielder. I mean, I'm not too concerned about that. I don't mind a lower starting yield, because my retirement date is, I'm not going to be 60 for another 20 years. So I have that time to let it compound. It just depends on the stage that you're at. If you're willing, as you said, if you're willing to hold them for 20 years, then buy them by all means. But they are a long-term investment, and that's what they have to be seen as.
Yeah, exactly. And still, I do believe that valuation matters.
I find it hard to buy a company that's 35 PE or like crazy.
Yeah.
I struggle. I really struggle to do
Me
that,
too.
because it's clearly overvalued. And
Yeah.
it just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah. Okay. And then we have Dr. P. He is asking, which sectors seem to be undervalued the most right now? He's talking about insurance companies as an example, but are there also other sectors that are worth screening for undervalued stocks?
I don't screen by sector, so I'm not too sure. We did speak about insurance companies and the opportunity there at the moment. Energy is probably still a little bit undervalued. It's recovering, but it's probably still undervalued. And I'm not too sure the rest. I don't know about materials or industrials, but I don't hold a lot of them. I'm more healthcare, IT, and consumer staples, which are certainly not undervalued at the moment.
Yeah, although I believe that in consumer staples, if you don't look at America, but more at Europe, you will still find quite some good companies at not too high prices. Like what you just earlier mentioned, Unilever, Alda has. There are really some good companies in the consumer staples sector.
Yeah, but Europe as a whole is, I mean, I think the average is 16 PE, which is a lot lower than America. So European companies as a whole are cheaper. Well, look like they're cheaper than American stocks at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. The next question comes from Joe, and he asks, "What's your favorite UK stocks?"
So some of my favorites would be Diageo. I know we did a podcast on them that wasn't so bullish in terms of their numbers, but they've got great brand power. I still think they're overvalued at their current price. I was looking at them recently. I still think they need to come down a bit, but I think they're a great company, great brand power, and worth keeping an eye on. In terms of dividend companies, Aviva is another good one. I know that they are selling their Polish branch actually to Allianz as well, which is interesting. But they're a good English company, and Vodafone would be another dividend company that I like.
Vodafone as well, because they did a major dividend cut a few years ago, right?
Yeah, they did, but they're still a major player. I haven't looked into them in too much detail, but I looked into Orange. I don't know if you've heard of Orange.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I looked into them and Vodafone. I would rather Vodafone than Orange, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, it's definitely Giaggio, but also again, it's way too expensive. But then I also like Halma PLC, and it's number 4 in the I sit in the Noble 30 index, and it's I don't know if you know Halma, but it's kind of, I don't know if I can say it like that, but it's a holding company, kind of the Berkshire Hathaway of the UK, and it owns several companies that are specialized in safety gears and safety products and such. And I like that company a lot. This is so pricey, but I once did a back test, and I believe 10K invested like 10 years ago. I think it really, really had a high growth rate. So Halma is for me definitely something, a company that I could recommend. But again, valuation matters. So I also I'm not buying this company, but I would love to own it at a certain moment in time.
Cool. I've actually never heard of those companies, so I might look them up. Is there any others that you like?
From the UK? No, not. Sorry, but not too much. I did an analysis the other time also on Sage PLC, which gives this what is it, finance software.
Yeah.
It was a bit blah. Yeah, it's doing its job. It's like SAP, but yeah. I mean, it's not Salesforce. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that's my issue with them.
Okay. I quite like Sage. I use them quite a bit, so I think they have good software. But I get where you come from. They certainly aren't Salesforce.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have Image Invest asked us a question. He said, if you could only pick one dividend stock to sit on for 25 years, what would it be?
Yeah, and this is really it's a really clever question as well, right? Because it would be the same like if you could close down the stock market for 25 years, your thinking really started to change. So when I saw this question coming and I first started to think about sectors, and I thought like, well, Johnson Johnson is of course natural. But then I think they have a pharma business. Are the pharma prices really sustainable in the US where they get a lot of revenue? I thought like maybe pharma sector, maybe not. Although if you think about biotech and the possibility maybe that we once will cure cancer, then I think, but will Johnson Johnson be the one that's curing cancer? I felt like, nah. So I think I will probably stick to a consumer staple, and then I will just choose my favorite, like Unilever. But it also could be, for instance, Walmart. Although it's not in my, I said my tier one. I'm thinking about 25 years from now, if I see what they are doing with their online business as well, I don't see Walmart going away at all. So, yeah.
That's some good reasoning right there. I know on Twitter when this was asked, somebody, the Sunday Investor actually suggested Coca-Cola, which would be a no, considering I just sold them. But for me, it would be someone like Microsoft. It would definitely be somebody in my tier one. And I don't see Microsoft going anywhere in the next 25 years. I mean, they're at the forefront. But even outside of that, if it wasn't a dividend company and I had one company, it might be Google. I mean, who's going to overtake Google in the next 25 years?
That depends a lot on how we are consuming information and how we are looking for information. And no, I wouldn't have the same confidence in Google. I know
No?
it's a powerhouse, but I find that their investments that they are doing, besides the acquisition of YouTube, I think they've gone nowhere. I mean, look at Tesla versus Waymo, and the amount of kilometers they already have done. Tesla with self-driving. Look, the advertising they failed also on social media, right, with their Google Plus. They're burning a lot of cash for that. I think they're now getting into the cloud, but I wouldn't know. If I think about one of those companies, I think about Amazon. Amazon is getting so deeply integrated in all these supply chains. But I think what Google really has is a search engine that is really popular. There's a cash cow plus YouTube. And then you really depend on how we consume information in 10 years from now. Because if we shift to virtual reality or something like that, then I think YouTube might fall away if YouTube is not able to pivot. So then the only question is like, is Google search engine so special that it couldn't be disrupted by someone else? And that question I cannot really answer yet, but I have some doubts there. I think it's possible by a company like Amazon or something like that. So
Okay. Well, Microsoft can't do it. They've tried with Bing, and it's awful.
yeah, because but that has not to do with, I think, with the technology. It has to do that it's a winner takes all market. Yeah, if you are used to Google with the Google search, if you got 99% of 96% of the world traffic, it's really hard to build up your index, right? Because that's what Bing is about, building up an index, and you learn by the amount of people using your algorithm.
Yeah, but I mean, if I'm looking for something and I could type the same thing into both search engines, I'll get what I want on Google, and I don't
Yeah.
always get what I want on Bing.
Okay, but what if we all shift now to augmented reality or something like that, or having a HoloLens? I mean, Google needs to be there, right? You need to be able to plug in Google then to search. And if someone else is able to do something there, and suddenly everyone shifts the platform from a web interface to something else, and Google is not able to pivot with that, then there will be just the next search engine. So anyway, this is my opinion, of course. I'm not a specialist from that point of view, but I find Google too much of a one-trick pony compared to a diversified company like Microsoft or Amazon.
Okay. Cool. That was a good question. We also had a question from, I think it's Odysseus, and he asked us, what is the best and worst investor relation department side you've come across so far?
So the best is Berkshire Hathaway. It's simple, straight to the point, and also the information in their reports is really good. I mean, from a user friendliness, I think from the large size companies is definitely Procter and Gamble, which is awful, really awful. But there are also like companies. I mean, in France, I'm sorry if we have France listeners from France, but I mean, what the heck? I was the other time. Was it? I don't know if it was Solvay or Sodexo, one of those two. I mean, half of the website was just broken. So I thought, like, okay, then just put just a phone number on there. People call you, because there was no added value out of the whole investor relations website anyway.
I mean, it's funny you mention French companies, because my one is a French company. It's Orange SA. I mean, it's horrible. But I found that too. I found broken links. I felt like emailing them saying, "Fix this goddamn link. I want to get to this particular site." But it also felt like I was back in the 1980s. Like the site was just so cumbersome. I mean, it was horrible, and they have all their annual report. Like, I just wanted to download it. That's it. I just wanted a PDF. They have it in this stupid player that you have to scroll through. You can't easily search. It's just a pain.
I hate this when investor relations websites push you to go through, and Microsoft does this as well, right? You need to go into Excel or into Word to read the annual report. Think about us, please. We just want a bloody PDF, read it on our iPads.
Yeah, but now from Microsoft point of view, it's their product. So I understand that. They want you to, like, you're investing in them, use their goddamn product, okay? I get it. But everybody else, give it to me in a PDF, please. That's all I want. That's not too hard to ask.
Good point.
Okay, and then the last question of the day, and we might as well finish up with a rant, but what do you think of IBM?
Oh, fucking hell. It's from Michelle Christiansen.
Okay. I believe people
Yeah.
are probing you now. They just know you want to rant. Just let it out.
No, but I can tell you what I would do with IBM. I would sell the consultancy branch. I would spin it off probably as a new entity. I would give the CEO as a package deal together with the managed outsourcing, managed services business unit that they are spinning off.
Hmm.
I think he fits perfectly in there to solve L2 and level 1 and level 2 tickets. I mean, I think that's what gets him excited. And I would sell Watson and Red Hat to Microsoft. I think it will flourish under a company like Microsoft. And then, what's left of the company, I would put it on Etsy or on eBay, depending on where you think the most clients are. That's what I would do with IBM, and that's what I think about IBM. And I would never put my money in this company until there's a proper CEO with knowledge that can turn this company around. It's now a declining, dying business. That's my thinking.
I'm starting to write a blog post on them, analyzing them. I started, I think it's 10 days ago now. And man, they've got so many products, and it's like they don't know what they're good at. So they've gone into so many segments and sectors and products and services until they find something that sticks. That's what it feels like when I'm going through it. It's like I've spent nearly the bones of 10 days going through that, and that's without even looking at numbers. Just going through that and trying to digest it in a way. And I think I've got annoyed now and just referred people to the 10K and pointed out the page number, because I mean it's crazy. But I'm still going in with an open mind. I mean, I still have to take into consideration, okay, they're splitting their company. How is that going to look? And what their figures will look like when we discount the legacy
Nobody
business.
knows because they are not transparent about it.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
I'll let you know when I dig deeper.
Well, but the fact that you already need to dig deeper says already enough about their transparency.
Yeah, it's tough, and like even when you're trying to analyze them on a segment basis, like they've changed their segment and how they report it in 2016, and now they've changed it again, and it's just hard to make a comparison over a long period. But
Of course, it's smoke and mirrors. I
mm,
mean, I really don't trust this management. It's poison. What's in this management board there? We did the other time in the show on the podcast here where we showed how their EPS was declining continuously, how they were having a bet on what was it. First, it was Watson, then it was the
blockchain,
cloud, blockchain, the cloud. I mean, it's like, yeah, like you divorce from your wife every year and choose a new one, and you say this is the one.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it isn't. Anyway, uh, good luck with the analysis. I'm really looking forward to read it, and I will try to read it with an open mind, although that's really hard for me.
Don't lie to me. Okay, so I think that concludes the show. It's been really fun. I enjoy talking about Intel. It's a company I really like. The questions were great. Had us even debating against each other, which is always good, and it's good to get other opinions. As always, we've got a ton of emails recently. Our emails are always open. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Twitter. Contact us anywhere. We'll always write back as fast as we possibly can. Appreciate every comment and every listen. So thank you, and thanks a million for tonight's show, European DGI.
Thank you, thank you as well, EMF, and have a lovely weekend.
Adios.